So I think for me, that's been my biggest personal growth, that I've now gotten to the point where I don't take it personally. Just the amount of growth in that time to get to a point where I've got such a thicker skin and a faith that everything's happening for a reason, and a faith that, people can go and they might want to come back, and that's totally fine too. So I think that's been the biggest lesson / growth throughout these 7 years of running a membership-based business.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I am your host, Kim Barrett. And on today's episode, we are joined by the amazing Ash Matković, the owner, founder of Fusion Biz Co here in Perth. She runs some amazing events in person. She's run in conjunction with another amazing lady, Brooke Valinovich, International Women's Day events here in Perth, Australia. And yeah, just doing some really cool things in the event space. So if you're someone who wants to get out there and network a bit more, or wants to know how these events work behind the scenes, this is an episode you will not want to miss. But until then, let's jump into the show. Ash, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. Now, I always like to start off the podcast the same way, which is if I met you and we're at a party and we're chatting and I said, Ash, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
I would say that I create meaningful experiences for women to come together and connect in a really safe space where they can show their true, authentic self and be able to stick it out in business and form those beautiful friendships that you need, and support group that you need to stick it out in business. That's what I would say.
Anyone would think you've probably said that 1 or 2 times before.
Well, I've listened to your podcast before. I actually didn't rehearse it, but I probably should have.
No, I love that. I love that. And so, yeah, because you run some obviously, small intimate events up to some really big events. What's being that obviously, I think a lot of people are still reeling a little bit from, a whole of everything that happened in 2020 and beyond. Like, how have you seen the state of events, in 2024, 2023, and how do you kind of see them going over the next couple of years?
In terms of in-person networking, or in terms of business in general?
Yeah, people actually coming to events, coming to in-person events, getting excited about them. How have you seen that kind of over the last year or so?
Yeah, great question. I think we didn't stop running events during COVID. We had it really good in Perth. So we just kept running events. We still did them monthly. But we also had to, with the vaccine mandates, we had to make sure that all of our community felt welcome. So we were still doing outdoor events and in-person events indoors as well. So I would say that in terms of business, we definitely had a drop off during that time though, but we still wanted to make sure we provided those experiences for people to come together, because that's when we needed the support the most. And after COVID, I would say numbers skyrocketed because everyone just wanted to get back out there again and network and be social. And it was kind of a new thing again, everyone had been hermited for so long. And then now we've kind of evened out again. So memberships, I run memberships, so it's always peaks and troughs. And I was actually at a speed networking event last night and I was speaking to the girls and they were like, how's the member numbers going? At the moment, member numbers are down a little bit, but I said, look, I never let myself worry about it because I've been doing this for 7 years now. And I know there's always ups and there's always downs and we always come back. So, and I still just keep doing the same thing, creating those events, allowing women to bring their true authentic self, and people drop in and they drop out, and that's fine. So yeah, I think that's the beauty of being in business for so long, is you just don't stress the little ups and downs anymore.
Yeah, you get used to it. It's going to be a cycle. You can't have anything be up forever, right? It's what goes up must come down eventually.
Yeah.
And obviously, I managed to sneak into one of your events, even though I know they're normally for women, but I got to come along to the most recent International Women's Day that you and Brooke Valinovich put on, which was a pretty epic event. Obviously, you've got your events for your members, which you do a great job for, and then you've got a big event like that. What's the difference in prep for an event of the scale of International Women's Day versus obviously the normal events that you're pumping out month in, month out?
So to give you an idea, we've already started planning International Women's Day 2025. So we're already looking to lock the venue in. And from now on in, the workload doesn't get much lighter than that. So we're constantly having meetings. We're meeting with our potential sponsors. We're meeting with potential exhibitors. We're trying to get everything locked in, and then we start the pre-sale tickets campaign, and then the tickets are on sale. So the International Women's Day, which had 300 people at it this year, it was at Crown Towers. That is the largest one that we do. So, and it just has so many moving parts. You would know, Kim, you run big events like that before, and there's no room for dropping the ball. Like, you have to be on it. We've got an Asana project board, and like my team and Brooke's team are in there, and we're all like, allocating the tasks and things. So it's lots of communication. I think we're like WhatsApping all the time. And in terms of the smaller events that we do each month, so for Fusion, we run 2 in-person events every month for our VIP members. So, and I have an event manager now. Her name is also Ash. So it's the 2 Ashes. And yes, yeah. And so she basically does all of that. So I've been able to set up like systems and processes in Asana. So she just basically follows that. To give you an idea, we start putting tickets on sale about 6 weeks out, and it's so systemized, these events now. I've been running them for 7 years, so I can do it so easily. And even Ash now is learning how to do it so quickly and easily. And she's only been on since Jan. So the very different scale.
Nice. I love that. And I'd love to know, like, obviously, I kind of tapped you on the shoulder at the event, and I was like, I've got to ask. I was like, because at the most recent event, your major sponsor was Maserati, right? How did that happen? Like, how did you manage to get Maserati to sponsor an event like this? Because that was an amazing get from all intents and purposes for a sponsor. That was huge.
Yeah, I know. We're still pinching ourselves, really. So the major sponsor was actually Barbagallo Maserati. We can't forget Barbagallo. And last year I actually had 2 incredible business opportunities just drop into my lap. And one of them really was this Barbagallo sponsorship. I know the marketing manager. She was the first member that ever joined Fusion, and she recently left Fusion. She stopped doing her marketing business and got a job as the marketing manager from Barbagallo. And she'd been to all the International Women's Day events before, and she knew the professionalism and the credibility that event now has. And so she basically pitched the idea to her bosses at Barbagallo, and then pitched it to Maserati. And so she came to Brooke and I, said she wants to do that. And then within, I would say, 2 weeks, we'd done the proposal. She'd met with all her bosses, and they'd paid the first deposit. So it just got to be that easy. And the other opportunity was one that Fusion got to partner with a big internet brand in Perth. And they were going to put Fusion on buses, or they did put Fusion on buses and on the radio. I just heard our ad on the radio yesterday, actually. And also, I know the marketing manager from that company. So it just goes to show how important building your networks is, and how these opportunities can just come from anywhere when you start to know lots of people in lots of different areas.
100%. And like, obviously, not to go too much into the nitty gritty details of it, but like, for anyone listening and they're like, wow, like, that's amazing. What sort of outcomes are people looking like from sponsoring those events? As you said, you guys had already done a fair few events. You've had runs on the board. You've had successful International Women's Day events before. Like, what are businesses like Barbagallo and Maserati looking for when they go and sponsor an event like you guys?
Yeah, so Maserati especially, they were looking to get in front of more women. So they're kind of shifting their brand to be more female focused. So it was a perfect alignment for them and for us. So I think that just worked out really well. The bigger brands such as Barbagallo and Maserati who joined to sponsor, look, they have marketing budgets, right? So they're looking to get that brand awareness. And they're not always looking at that direct return on investment, whereas we've had in the past a lot of smaller sponsors, so small businesses that are really looking for that return on investment. They want to maximize that opportunity. They want to sign people on the day. And just going with Barbagallo Maserati this year, it was, I guess, how do I say? It was a lot smoother, I would say, because they were just loving to be a part of it. They didn't feel like they had to get something out of it. So, yeah, I think it was different. Yeah. Yeah.
Because as you say, obviously the smaller business is like, cool, I pay X. I'm hoping to get X plus something for doing it, because that's like, that's their marketing budget too, which I'm assuming is probably a lot smaller than Barbagallo and Maserati. So Yeah, right. Awesome. That's really interesting. And then, so obviously great success this year. Looking forward, like, how do you guys plan how big you want the next event to be? Like, do you go, cool, we did 300 this year, next year's 4 or 5 or 6? Like, how do you guys kind of, not only, I suppose, adjust your own expectations of it, but how do you guys kind of plan, all right, here's how we want to make it bigger and better every year?
Yeah, so we started out with 60 women at the Isle of Voyage. It's like in Elizabeth Key. And that for us felt huge. That was 7 years ago. And we were like, wow, I can't believe 60 women want to come to this event, right? And so the year after, we booked a bit of a bigger venue. I think it was at Fraser's in Kings Park. So I think we got about 180. And then the year after that was Fraser's again. We got 220, I think. And then it was always Brooke's goal to get to Crown because she sees that as like the ultimate. Whereas for Fusion branding, I thought, Fraser's was the ultimate because I love venues that are light, bright, airy, that kind of style that Fraser's, that top room has. But we thought, look, let's make the jump and we'll go for Crown this year and we'll see how we go. We had to sell 300 tickets because that's the smallest ballroom that they have there. And we sold out just before the last day of tickets being on sale. So we sold out 300 there and that felt amazing. But making that jump from 220 to 300 felt scary. And then we were able to sell out again this year in 2 weeks. So 300 people at the same ballroom at Crown in 2 weeks. And so now we're having a chat about, what we're going to be doing next year, because I think going 300 again in that ballroom just wouldn't be fair to our communities because so many people missed out. So we had a wait list this year and we had already about 70 people on that wait list. So now we're making the decision of whether to open up another side of the ballroom. But that feels like a really big jump as well. But we didn't do any paid marketing or advertising for the event this year. So I think if we had a really strong advertising campaign, we could definitely go the double ballroom. So that's what we're kind of just like tossing up now.
And then obviously you mentioned for Fusion, you're pushing things ahead there. Tell me a little bit, like, what's the thought behind the buses and the radio ads? Just like as an ads guy, I'm always curious, like, what's the approach with that side of things?
Yeah, so the company is Pensonet. They're a WA-based internet company, and they partnered with 4 groups within WA for their campaign. So one was a footy team, one was Fusion, obviously, and then one was like, those people that go and dress up in all the swords and stuff and do that like play fighting. I can't remember what it's called.
Live action role play dudes, yeah.
Yes, it's them. Yes. So they partnered with them, and then they had this guy, this photographer come in. He was a world famous. He'd shot Barack Obama and many other people, and so he came in and did a photo shoot with us. And I think the whole thing around it was just the whole theme of it was making good connections, because obviously theirs is internet connections and Fusion is in-person connections. So it kind of just matched really well. Just like a creative little campaign that they were doing. And they really went all out, which was cool. And it was free exposure for Fusion. So I just feel like it elevated the credibility for the brand as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so for Fusion, like, goals, obviously, like, you're extremely well known around Perth and you've got a lot going on here. Like, ambitions to kind of push it out and do events all over, or are you just looking at like just dominating the Perth space?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I have dominated the Perth event space, and as a business owner, you always want to be pushing the limits, right? So that is the plan, to go national this year. I do have 2 little kids. They're only 2 and 4. That's why I haven't pursued that goal of mine yet, but I do feel like the time is near because my second is almost going to be in kindy. So I would look to probably launch in one state first. We're looking at maybe Melbourne. I even had a meeting with someone over there that wants to take Fusion over there. So yes, that is definitely on the cards. But then I'm very well aware that it's like starting from scratch when you're launching in a new state. So I just need to give my full attention and time. I mean, Fusion here is now systemized and I don't have to do much at all. All I do really is the advertising and the marketing, the strategy. So it's in a really good place now. I've got a VA and an event manager, that's all. So watch this space. It is on the cards.
Nice. Awesome. And obviously you've got Fusion and obviously, as you mentioned, like for ladies in business and helping them grow and having a great community. For anyone out there, whether they're in a different state, different country, if they're looking to try and go to events to find like-minded people and to grow themselves, like what are a few of the things that you recommend people look for? Obviously, if they're not in Perth or can't come to a Fusion event, like what should they look for to be a sign of like a quality event or quality community?
I think it depends what you're looking for. I think all the networking groups have their place. Like there's referral-based networking, which we're all well aware of. There's more like Fusion, which is a business support group. So I guess it's just going around and trying to find the one that suits your values the best. I think with Fusion, we've always said it's not about making a sale, or it's not about getting a referral. It's about coming and feeling supported on the business journey. So I think it depends what you're looking for and what type of business you are and what type of person you are as well. We were actually talking about this last night. We had an insurance broker there, and she said she tried out a referral-based networking community, and she was like, it was working for my business, but it wasn't working for me. So she was dreading going to the meetings every week, having to bring people along, having to give referrals. She said it just didn't feel genuine at all. And then she found Fusion, and now she's like, these are my people. So I think, have a look at your goals and your values and see what aligns. And I would say just get out there and just start going to things, and you'll find your people.
Yeah, awesome. Nice. I love it. And so obviously growing, pushing, you've got a couple of young kids, like, from the sounds of it, it's like you guys pumped events, you've got your big events that you do. It's like, great opportunities coming falling in your lap, but obviously is off the back of hard work. But like what were the hurdles that you kind of faced along the way as well with these things? Because I think sometimes people could be like, man, it sounds like Ash just killed it, continue to kill it, super smooth. Like what were some of the hurdles that kind of popped up along the way?
Oh, definitely not smooth. I think, Kim, you probably saw me at my lowest when I was in your mastermind. So the biggest hurdle for me was running a membership. Obviously, you're dealing with churn, and you're dealing with people cancelling. And for me, like I become friends with I go to pretty much every event. I become friends with these people. Initially, I would take it not as a personal, well, I guess as a personal rejection, because I'm like, well, if they don't want to come to my events, they don't want to know me, So I think for me, that's been my biggest personal growth, that I've now gotten to the point where I don't take it personally. And, we can still be in each other's world. So for me, like initially, if I would because I was processing everything for the first couple of years. For the first, I think 3 or 4 years, I was doing it all myself. And just the amount of growth in that time to get to a point where I've got such a thicker skin and a faith that everything's happening for a reason, and a faith that, people can go and they might want to come back, and that's totally fine too. So I think that's been the biggest lesson / growth throughout these 7 years of running a membership-based business. Also, when I was in your mastermind and I was pregnant with my second child, and we had 300 members at the time, paying members. They weren't paying a lot. And I just got to a point where I was managing, so much customer service. And I don't think I'd grown myself to a point where I was able to energetically hold that many people in one container. Because, even though I wasn't, physically coaching or anything like that, I still really care about people's experience. And no matter how much they're paying, I really care if people, weren't loving the experience. So I think at the point I kind of self-sabotaged almost, because I shut down that kind of membership and then launched a new one off the back of it. It was like a higher tier membership. And I figured, I'm having my second baby. If I can hold, 80 people energetically rather than these 300 people, then it's going to be a lot easier for me, less customer service, all of that. So I made that change, and it was a rocky couple years, I will admit, but now Fusion is at a point again because it was basically like starting from scratch. Like I was basically launching a new membership, right? But we're finally at a point where things are good and stable again, and, membership signups are happening regularly. Everyone's really happy with the new membership format. And so now we have 2 tiers, and it's just working really well. And yeah, it was a lot. I think I did it out of reaction and emotional reaction, and it wasn't something that I really thought through. But now looking back, I realize how much growth came from that time as well. So I don't regret it.
Yeah, no, awesome. I love that. And now, Ash, as we get towards the end of our time here together, I always like to ask the same question at the end of a podcast as well, which is there any questions that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Ooh, good question. I've gone blank. I don't know. I should have known the answer. I should have had a good question up my sleeve for this because I do listen to your podcast. I don't know. People always ask, like, how do you do the juggle of FIFO life and young mum life and business life? They always ask me that question. If you want to ask me that,
yeah. How do you do it?
And I don't even really have a good answer because it's just like basically just, managing my energy. My husband's actually going away this time for 11 days because he's away for work and then away for a boys' weekend. So now I've learned how to regulate my nervous system a lot better than when I had my first baby. So I really make sure I take the time. I do daily yoga. I meditate. I go to the gym, sauna, all these things. So I'm just really upping my self-care at the moment to make sure that I can handle these 11 days because it's full on with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. They're just wild and they just know every button to push. But I wouldn't really have it any other way because I love my business too. So
yeah, no, awesome. Love that. And actually, if people want to know what's going on, maybe what Fusion's up to, upcoming events and things like that, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Yeah, so they can just go to Instagram at Fusion Biz Co or the website www.fusionbizco.com.au. That's the best place.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So guys, if you're listening to this, please share it with maybe someone who needs to get out there and is trying to network a bit more, or someone who maybe even runs events and has a dream of growing into that big ballroom one day for their events, to give them a little bit of inspiration hearing Ash's journey along the way. So Ash, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.